Hello, everyone. Wrong shirt again. What the hell is wrong with me? That's much better. We got the throwback Packers jersey on now. Welcome back to Packers 101. And today, once again, all about the Green Bay Packers. We're going to be going through a bunch of legendary Packers players, and we're going to be putting them in the five tiers again. So S, A, B, C, and D. Keep in mind, these are just my opinions, and I think all these players are great no matter what anybody says, except maybe one or two. So starting off, we have Nick Collins, former safety for the Green Bay Packers. And some of you might not remember, but in Super Bowl 45, Aaron Rodgers' lone Super Bowl win, in the first half, Nick Collins had a very critical pick six in that game, and it was amazing to watch. The crowd just went crazy. And he was a solid player for a good few years, but unfortunately, his career was cut tragically short due to injury. He was going to tackle Jonathan Stewart, and he hurtled him. He kind of hit his neck, and it didn't look too bad at first glance, but unfortunately ended his career. Uh, I'm gonna put him in B tier. He was a solid player for when he played for us. His career was just cut short due to injury. He could have been, I think, one of the best safeties of our generation, but unfortunately, he just didn't have the kind of time in. Up next, we got Packers icon Bart Starr. Okay, talent wise, I mean, he's not like a Brett Favre or an Aaron Rodgers, but to the Packers, he's just so iconic. I have to put him in the S tier. Now, keep in mind, I'm judging this off a few things: talent and contributions to the team. Bart Starr, most Super Bowls in Packers history. He's got two of them, and he was just a legendary leader in that locker room with Lombardi as the coach. It was truly amazing. Obviously, most of us weren't around to watch it live, but just looking at it's like the Ice Bowl, the famous QB sneak, he's just done so much for Packers history. He has to be an S tier. Up next, we got Greg Jennings. Now, a lot of you know the controversy between him and Aaron Rodgers. I'm not really going to get into that, but I'm going to put him at C tier. He was solid for the few years that he was in Green Bay. It didn't end very well though. And then when he went to Minnesota, didn't do that well there. Then he was actually in Miami for a year, and he had about 100 yards in the season. So while he was with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, he had a decent career. He was a good receiver, but I wouldn't put him above C. Up next, we got Charles Woodson. I love Charles Woodson, and I'm gonna put him in the A tier. I think he's one of the greatest cornerbacks to ever play, but he was only in Green Bay for 6 years, so I don't think I can put him in S tier quite yet. You know what though? He was so good. Now I'm debating S. Nah, I'll leave him in A tier. Charles Woodson, lockdown corner, great for the Raiders and Packers. I was there live when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame at Lambeau Field, and that was a really cool moment to see. He gave a really heartfelt speech, and I have absolutely nothing but love and respect for Charles Woodson. So, one of the greatest Packers for sure. Up next, we got Donald Driver. He was a very good wide receiver. He played a long time, started in the 90s. I'm gonna put him in A tier. I just think because the longevity wise, he was great. Talent, he was always pretty good. I wouldn't call him, like a Randy Moss or a T.O. or anything, but he could hold his own. He was drafted pretty late, I believe, close to the seventh round. So Packers definitely got their value out of him, that's for sure. And he was around for both Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, the beginning of Aaron Rodgers anyway. So I think Donald Driver belongs in the A tier. Up next, we got the Claymaker, Clay Matthews. This is another one. I'm gonna put him in the A tier. When he started in Green Bay, this dude was a monster with the golden hair. Oh my god, he was. I think at one point he was the best linebacker in the league, but then in 2016, his production just dropped significantly, and he just wasn't the same anymore. He had a decent season when he left the Packers in LA, but yeah, I think Clay in the A tier is a good spot for him. I don't think he's quite deserving of S tier, but one of the greatest Packers in history for sure. Up next, we got Reggie White, and no debating it. Reggie White belongs in S tier. Probably the greatest defensive lineman of all time. You could not block him one on one. You just physically couldn't do it. Hell, even doubling him wasn't that effective. He, in my opinion, just he changed the game. He really did. Without him, the Packers don't win the Super Bowl against the Patriots in the 90s. They probably don't get to the second Super Bowl against Denver the next year later. So Reggie White, one of the best players when he was on the Eagles and the Packers. He had a season in Carolina too, I think, but not really known for that. Either way, number retired, one of the greatest Packers of all time, undisputed. Up next, we got Aaron Jones. This is an interesting one. My heart really wants to put him A tier, but I can't do it. He's gonna go B tier for now. He's one of the Packers' best running backs of all time, actually, which is kind of crazy to think about. I mean, the only one I would put over him is maybe Amon Green, and even that I'm not 100% sure of. But Aaron Jones, electric, explosive, been a great force for the Packers over these last 5 years. So I'm gonna put him in B tier for now, but I do think he worked his way up to A and S eventually. Up next, we got Brett Favre, good old Mississippi boy. Yeah, he's going an S. Okay, I know he has a lot of controversy off the field with the whole welfare fraud thing. Yes, that is terrible, but this is just as his contributions as a player and to the organization. He's one of the Packers' greatest players of all time. He belongs in S tier. Obviously, don't support some of his personal actions, but on the field, S tier for sure. Up next, we have, in my opinion, the greatest Packer of all time, double Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers obviously is in the S tier. Wow. 18 years for Green Bay. So many great memories. I mean, my whole time being a Packers fan, I started being a fan around 2009, 2010. He's the only quarterback that Green Bay's ever had. I mean, sure, while he was out, a few different guys started, obviously, but I grew up with Aaron Rodgers, so it's really sad to see him go. But I will never forget all the many, many great things he did for the team. So I believe he's S tier. And if there was a tier above S tier, I would put Rodgers there. Up next, we got Don Hudson. Started in 1935. Kind of crazy to think about. He played for Packers for 10 years, and I want to put him in the S tier just because he was really the first like, dominant receiver in in an era that was just all ground and pound. You know, I'm gonna do it. They have a practice facility named after him in Green Bay. I have to put him in the S tier. One of the best receivers in the history of football for his time. He helped change the game into what it is today. So I think for that alone, he deserves S tier. Up next, we have Eddie Lacy. For those Packers fans in 2012, 2013, 2014, man, was this guy fun to watch then. He was honestly a faster Marshawn Lynch at the time, but then he fizzled out so quickly. And he gained so much weight and he was never the same. I'm debating between C and D. Put him in C just because he had a really good 2 years for the Green Bay Packers. But what could have been if he stayed in shape and had the right mindset, he could have been one of the best running backs of this generation. But now he's just an afterthought, unfortunately. So sorry, Eddie, you're C tier. Up next, we got James Lofton. Now this is also an older one. He played in Green Bay in the late 70s and the early 80s. Left in about 86, I think. And that was kind of a bleak era for the Packers. They didn't really have anybody. It was kind of the transition period between Starr and Favre. And they had Don Majkowski, who was a decent quarterback for a while. Then he got hurt and he was never the same. But either way, James Lofton, he put up some really good numbers for the 80s. He had some 1,000-yard seasons. So I think he deserves to be respected in the A tier. He was kind of a underappreciated star in a bad era for the Packers. So I believe he deserves credit for that. I wish he could have played in either the 60s or the 90s with Starr or Favre. That would have been really cool to see. Obviously, I wouldn't have been able to see it live because I wasn't here yet, but it would be cool to see those highlights. Up next, we got John Kuhn. I mean, obviously, talent-wise, like, he's not gonna pop off on your TV like a Greg Jennings, a Jordy Nelson, a Sterling Sharp, but he was good, or a Devontae Adams, best Packers wide receiver in history. He'll come up, don't worry. But he was good at what he did. He got those short yardage gains, and he was a good blocker at fullback. So I'll put him at the B tier. Also, he was very popular with the fans, and honestly, just a great human. Everyone loves John Kuhn, so I'm gonna put him in the B tier. Up next, we got one of the greatest receivers in Packers history, Jordy Nelson. And I think Jordy belongs in A tier. So many great memories of Rodgers to Nelson. That was one of the things I grew up on. Really had a coming out party in 2012, 2013, 2014. God, he was so good. I remember in the preseason in 2015 watching him tear his ACL in the preseason against the Steelers. Man, that hurt. I thought that was going to be the end for Jordy, but then in 2016 had a great season and won comeback player of the year. You just if you're a Packers fan and you were around for that time, you gotta love Jordy. There's no way around it. Jordy A tier. Up next, we got James Jones, aka Master of the Hoodie. And we're gonna put him in the B tier. He was a solid receiver. He wouldn't pop off of your screen, but when you threw the ball to him in a one-on-one coverage situation, odds are he would come down with it, and that was kind of his claim to fame. He was that solid, steady hands guy that you could depend on. Made many great plays with Rodgers, and actually led the league in touchdowns one year, which is kind of crazy. So I think James Jones at the B tier. That's a good spot for him. Up next, we got Randall Cobb. Ooh, debating between B and A. I'm gonna go B. When Cobb first started, he was electric from like 2012 to 2014. He was a great receiver, and he didn't completely drop off like to the level of Eddie Lacy, but he definitely dropped off as soon as Jordy Nelson tore the ACL. He was never quite the receiver he was when he was, a rookie in 2013 and 2014. So I can't justify putting Cobb any higher than B, but he is an iconic Packers player. It was really cool to see him return to Green Bay these last few seasons. So I'll always love Cobb, but you got to go with B. Up next, we got Sterling Sharp, aka brother to Unc Shannon Sharp. We're gonna go A tier. His career, much like Nick Collins, was cut tragically short due to injury. He could have been probably the greatest receiver of all time if he was healthy and played to the level or played to the longevity of someone like T.O., Rice, Moss. But he got hurt 6 years into his career. He was probably on pace to have, leading every statistical category, but he still made great contributions to the Green Bay Packers. He deserves to be respected. A tier for sure. Up next, we got Devontae Adams. Yeah, I gotta put him there. Devontae Adams goes in the S tier. Okay, I will admit I'm not fully proud of this, but after Devontae's second year, there's a video out there of me somewhere calling him a bust. And that was the biggest mistake I have ever made. Devontae Adams turned into one of the greatest receivers of all time. I think the best Packers receiver of all time. So, Devontae Adams, thank you for everything that you did with Green Bay, and I wish you the best of luck in Vegas. You belong in the S tier. You're going in the Hall of Fame too. Up next, we got Jim Taylor, the fullback slash running back. I think B tier is a good spot for him. Up next, we got Amon Green. Now, once again, this is just looking at his contributions on the field and not off of it. We're gonna go with the A tier. Yeah, we'll leave him at the A tier. One of the best running backs in Packers history, our leading rusher. Yeah, the Packers' leading rusher all time was very electric back there, so I'm comfortable putting him on Green at the A tier. A lot of people weren't around for him, but he was very fast. That was kind of his claim. Up next, we got Leroy Butler. B or A, B or A. You know what? Because he invented the Lambeau Leap, I gotta go with A. Great safety. I'm glad he finally got into the Hall of Fame after so many years of being snubbed. He absolutely deserves it. So, congratulations, Leroy Butler, on making the Hall of Fame, and thanks for inventing the Lambeau Leap. You're iconic in Green Bay for sure. Up next, we got Ray Nitschke, aka the Bulldozer, and we're gonna put him in the S tier. Iconic member of the Green Bay Packers defense with Super Bowl wins in the '60s, Super Bowls 1 and 2. What a force he was! Like for Bears fans, he wasn't quite as good as like a Dick Butkus, but he was very close to that kind of player. Just physical beast. You do not want to get tackled by him. So I'm comfortable putting him in the S tier. Anyway, that's my tier list for all these legendary Packers players. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Feel free to let me know and place these guys in your own tier list if you like. You all have a good day. See you next time.